Michael Post is a fellow artist I hold in high regard because he makes work that I've never seen in this form before, and we are very close in our artistic thinking.
Heiner Thiel is a sculptor who creates semi-plastic sculptural forms that hang on the wall and have a beautifully strong color appearance. The technique he uses is anodizing his three-dimensional forms, which brings about a unique, almost singular color effect, a really compelling combination between form and color.
Heiner Thiel and Michael Post have been working together for about 40 years. As artists, as curators, exhibition makers and as book authors. At the moment there is a lot to do. A major exhibition in the United States is just around the corner. New works have to be conceived and fabricated for the event. In a rural region, the Hunsrück, about 70 kilometers from Wiesbaden, Michael Post is also preparing new works. The wall objects he is working on appear like mirrors. Reflections are a topic Post has been dealing with for almost 40 years.
This is a two-part object. It consists of two trapezes. And these two trapezes painted black with scar paint will hang on the wall as a diptych and converge in the form of a perspective foreshortening, which you can already see indicated here. In the middle will be a gap, and this is raised into the opposite direction. That is, it does not step back but rises slightly into the room.
Dark wall objects that are reflecting are nothing special. But Michael Post is creating his works in a very unique way.
The back sides of the two trapezes are going to be painted in fluorescent yellow, so the gap in the middle is oscillating the bright yellow color like a light.
It will be exciting to observe the impact of this piece. Heiner Thiel's colored reliefs require extensive planning because the artist has outsourced some important work steps. After calculating the basic shape, which consists of a spherical segment, the aluminium blanks are bent into the desired shape in an industrial plant. Subsequently, these forms must be meticulously ground smooth.
Grinding is one of the most important parts of the process because it ultimately determines the surface finish that is produced afterwards during anodizing and the small production defects that occur during dishing. These are small dents caused by the tools they use in heavy industry, which are not always so fine mechanically smooth. And I have to grind that out because otherwise I'll end up seeing it mercilessly in the anodizing.
While preparations are underway for the exciting process of anodizing, which gives Heiner Thiel's artworks their incomparable color. Michael Post is busy with a work whose idea goes back to the 90s. Here too, one cannot yet see how exciting the work will look after completion. This much can be revealed: this circle consists of several elongated tetrahedrons.
It's an endless loop, a vicious circle, so to speak. When you start looking at it, you cannot get out of it. The eye is circulating the form endlessly. There is no satisfactory answer as to how the whole thing is built. Everyone keeps asking me, what kind of shape is it? It has always been my focus to develop singular shapes, and I'm sure there is no second form like that anywhere.
Meanwhile, two reliefs by Heiner Thiel are being anodized, which means color-coated at the Alutecta company in Kirchberg, using an electrolytic process. This is the only way to give Heiner Thiel's artworks their special look. The process involves numerous baths and takes several hours to achieve the desired result. After degreasing and further work steps, the oxide layer is built up, in which the paint is then embedded and, in the end, as the experts say, compacted. But why this extraordinary, very chemical technical process?
This layer of color is extremely thin, 26 microns. That's 26 thousandths of a millimeter. That's thinner than a human hair, and that's the beauty of it, that despite the presence of the color, it's so thin. It's absolutely homogeneous. I don't think any painter can paint a surface so homogeneously, as uniformly as it happens here in this process.
Back in Wiesbaden, the colorful reliefs by Heiner Thiel must of course be further refined. This differently colored grey aluminium edge is very important in order to be able to perceive and appreciate the artwork in its three-dimensional distinctiveness later on. In the 6 months that I have accompanied Michael Post and Heiner Thiel, many processes have been running at the same time. Of course, it is important for artists to be represented in art collections. Many works by Thiel and Post, for example, were purchased by the state of Rhineland-Palatinate. 2 older works of art are now being given a new, very prominent place in Berlin in the representation of the state of Rhineland-Palatinate. The works, by Michael Post, 25-part acrylic paint on wood, consist of tetrahedrons, a shape that Michael Post is particularly fond of.
This is a 25-part installation from the series of the so-called Bible lenses. It is a title of mine. The work was purchased in 2001 with state funds for the Rhineland-Palatinate art collection. Then it hung for more than 20 years in the Ministry of Science and Art in Mainz and has now found a long-term place in this beautiful library of the Rhineland-Palatinate state representation in Berlin.
A blue relief by Heiner Thiel is given a very special place here in the representation of the state of Rhineland-Palatinate, a place next to one of his great idols. The space for the work is ideal, because the light fast color coding is very well accentuated by the abundance of light in this interior space of the building.
The beauty of it is that these works don't hide the metallicity of the aluminum. You can see it here on the edges. You can also see it shimmering through, because the blue is very transparent, and this gradient, which can be seen here in this work, is not somehow generated artificially, but it simply arises through the light reflection, depending on where you stand in front of it. The color impression also shifts, which beautifully underlines my philosophy of perspectival changes. And now I found a very fine place here, directly near a sculpture of my beloved idol Hans Arp. I'm happy how it's hanging there, and everybody can see it.
The satisfaction of the two after the Berlin visit can be well understood when after many years or even decades works get a new and perhaps better location and can thus become even more present in their appearance. The exhibition in the USA is now approaching and the works for it are more or less finished.
Okay, these are the new ones now, right?
Yes, these are the new mirror objects. You know, I worked with mirrors before, but now it's taken another dimension because the wonderful lacquer works are painted with car lacquer. You know that the gallery owner Charlotte Jackson is excited to see this new work in our exhibition.
Reflecting wall objects with colored shadows. What do I see when I look at these works of art?
The reflecting object has interested me for over 40 years. First, I used to work with real mirrors. Then I used metals, which have a reflecting surface by itself. And more recently, I do work with lacquers being polished to a high gloss. These car paints bring another aspect into my objects, namely the reflection into the space. That is, the space is reflected, the viewer is reflected, and the light and the conditions of the space are reflected in the surfaces of these objects.
sich eben in den Oberflächen dieser Objekte wieder. Das interessiert mich deswegen ganz besonders.
These kinds of objects have fascinated me for years already. The wall is included in the theme of the object in that the colored shadow is projected onto the wall. It grasps the surrounding space in its reflection, creating a three-dimensional impression on the viewer.
Die farbige Verschattung auf die Wand projiziert wird.
At Heiner Thiel's studio, the work for the exhibition in Santa Fe has also been completed. It is important how the colored reliefs are encountered by the observer to experience the special nature of the color coating.
The best way to approach this kind of artwork is through movement. First of all, I stand directly in front of the object and more or less grasp it with my gaze. And then it becomes really exciting when I move back and forth in front of it. For example, when I look at the edges, I see how they change, how a line that was previously curved suddenly becomes a straight line, and how the color in the object itself also changes. So then a shift takes place. What was light before suddenly becomes dark. What was previously red and orange suddenly becomes brown, almost black. And of course, it's particularly interesting that this is a three-dimensional object, although it resides on the wall and thus becomes a picture somehow, and you can see the backside at the same time. From an extreme position, you can see both, the back and the front. And this is not the case with a panel painting. So in the end, it's still sculpture. Essentially a relief, if you want to say so. And with a work like this here, with this yellow one, it's of course even crazier simply because of this completely free biomorphic amorphous form, which is also reminiscent of Hans Arp's sculptures. Because it's no longer comprehensible to the viewer that this is, in fact, a part of a spherical surface. Again and again, the viewers are quite astonished what that is. A part of a sphere, but I don't see that. But it is really the case. If you imagine a sphere with a radius of 2 or 1 meters, and I simply draw this shape on this spherical surface and cut it out, then it's still a spherical shape, but it is no longer clearly perceptible.
The exhibition, which will take place in the US, is called Embodying Color Outtakes, recalling the long series of exhibitions that Post and Thiel have curated and organized in the recent years. Outtakes because in addition to Post and Thiel, only Peter Weber will be co-represented in Santa Fe. The Embodying Color exhibition series has been on view in many European cities over the past 10 years, as here in Soest, the Vasarely Museum in Budapest, in Zurich, in the French city of Cré, or in Koblenz. It all started in Wiesbaden in 2013. And even after so many years, Embodying Color has not lost its meaning for the two artists.
Embodying Color was an exhibition series that Michael Post and I created together. It's about creating works where the color plays a key role, and not in the sense of illusionistic painting, where something is represented, but rather it's about the conditions of seeing color. For example, how I move in front of a work, and thereby the color impression changes. That is of utmost importance in my work, as well as it is essential in the work of Michael Post.
In my case, it has developed into a kind of embodying color, because the color itself becomes corporal. It's all about giving color a plasticity.
If you look at the artistic development of Heiner Thiel and Michael Post over the last 40 years, you can be sure that a creative end is nowhere in sight.